everybody. We are here at Eagle Stadium, home of the Westmoreland Eagles, on this beautiful fall afternoon. And I've got a man with me that a lot of people are going to know, a lot of people don't know, and that's why I wanted to do this interview. He is an important part of Westmoreland Eagle football, and he's going to tell you a lot about it. A man who some people may know as principal of North Sumner Elementary. Some people know him as former coach of Westmoreland Eagles, and I know him as my former boss and my former school teacher. This is Mr. Terry Herndon.
Well, good afternoon, maybe. No, not yet. But anyway, well, I'm glad to be here on this beautiful day too. I still really am excited when people call me Coach Herndon. I'm glad they remember.
Speak up a little bit, be sure we can hear you.
I'm sorry?
Speak up a little bit, be sure we can hear you.
The 6 years that I was here as the head football coach were the six of the most wonderful years of my life. I had a blast. I didn't realize how much fun I had. It took me a few years to really realize how important it was to me. First thing I would do, I want to give a tremendous amount of credit to Mr. Frank Ruckman for giving a 26-year-old kid a chance because he went out on a limb. But we didn't let him down. I brought David Martin up here, who I'd gotten the wing tee offense from when we coached together at Knox Toss Junior High. We put it in the previous year when I was an assistant coach, and it really worked really good for us. I think we lost one game after that, and then we won 7 straight. And then Mr. Ruckman called me in when Coach Winningham decided he was going to leave and go to Sparta, and asked me if I wanted to do the job. And actually, at 26, I was scared to death. You don't know, man. But I went down and I talked with my very good friend Ron Taylor, and Ron told me that day, he said, whatever you do, take the job. You may never get another chance to be a head football coach. So that was a Friday. I took off, Mr. Ruckman offered me the job on Thursday, and I took off Friday and to go talk with Ron. And so over the weekend, I decided I would do it the only way I knew to do it, and that was my way. And if my way wasn't meant to, if it didn't work out, then I wasn't meant to be a coach. Now I'll say this, I had the right kids, I had the right coaches, we had the right schedule. Whoever was the head coach of the 1977 Westmoreland Eagles, the team was going to be a good one. Now, whether they would have gone 10-0, I can't answer that question. I know we did.
Yeah. Well, listen, you were telling me and Casey about the story the first time you drove up at Eagle Stadium. Share that with us.
I pulled in. I had what do you call it? Who made a duster back then? Plymouth.
Plymouth, yeah.
We had to finance back then.
Yeah.
But that's the way things go sometimes. But it was all good. But I pulled in for a practice session. I was still at Knox Toss, but I'd come up, and I pulled in and parked right there behind the building. And as I got out of my car, Betty Bell pulled in, and Roger Holmes got out. He said, "Are you the new coach?" I said, "I am." He said, "I'm Roger Holmes." And he shook my hand.
Yeah. And the rest is history,
the
as they
rest
say.
is history. I coached Roger. I worked with him at Beach High School, and he has been a very successful coach and just a great guy overall.
Yeah. So tell me, when you walked up that day and you looked around everything, what was going through your head?
It sure didn't look like it does today.
Oh yeah.
This place, that field is absolutely beautiful. But what was going through my head, I was just happy to be here. I wanted to get into high school football. Ron Taylor had helped me with a few interviews that I'd had. Fortunately, the one at Macon County did not work out, and I'll say fortunately for this reason. I also interviewed with Glenn Gregory at Portland in January of '76, and it didn't work out. So the rest is history. Because if I'd have gone to either one of those places, who knows? But I know the opportunity to be the head coach here was because of not getting those 2 jobs. But we didn't have the field house in 1977. these, where we're sitting now, were the old wooden home bleachers. And all out here, you had on the field, you had the metal that was going to be constructed for the new home side. And we practiced, we just had to practice around it. There was no other place. You had a softball field down here, and of course you were limited in your space to what you could do, but you had to practice where you had to practice.
Yeah.
When we finished putting that stadium together, I know Wayne Bright, who became one of my assistant coaches, we served as assistant coaches together in '76, but he and I, with metal bars, held those seats up, and Steve Upton welded them. And this was only a day or two before the first game.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And Mr. Upman, he was real handy about rigging stuff up, and he put a PA system in and so forth.
Yeah.
We had the old lights, but I was really excited to be here. And that first year,
Well, tell me, you and I have talked a lot over the years. Tell me about some of the players. Tell me about some of the players you had.
Oh gosh, I had so many good ones, and the thing when you start calling names, you go leave somebody out, and it's never my intention to do that. But I can't name each and every one of them because, you can't really say you had a favorite, but I had a lot of favorites. But you talk about a run of football players. We had a quarterback, Roger Holmes. He was first team All Class A in 1977. You had Brian Graves, one of the best that ever played quarterback in Westmoreland, and there's been some good ones.
Yes.
All right. I didn't see them all play, but I know what Brian Graves could do.
Yeah.
And then, lo and behold, we get David Brooks, who was a combination of Roger Holmes and Brian Graves. And then you also had kids that could catch a football. Ricky Perry, Tim Coates, Tracy Carter, and so on. I'm gonna leave. Unfortunately, you're gonna leave people out.
I know you don't mean to leave anybody out.
That '77 team, though, you had Mike Kittrell was a tight end, and I saw his son. Oh gosh, I don't know. I've been in North Sumner for 30 years, so it could have been 10 years ago, could have been 15. But I said, "Who is that big boy?" They said, "That's Kyle Brown." I said, "Is that Mike's son?" They said, "Yeah." So they were reading, the FFA were reading to my kids out there. So when they were leaving, I asked him to step in my office. I showed him the pictures, which I still have.
Yeah.
And I showed him Mike's picture. I said, "Son, if your daddy had been as big as you, he'd have been a lethal weapon." And he pretty much was anyway. But that '77 team was really something, and they did what we asked them to do. I don't know how to put it. And I don't mean to sound like we're bragging, because every coach takes it to another level. They do things to improve. And one of the things, raised in Gallatin, Mr. Dan Harry was our principal, and he had a tremendous amount of pride in Gallatin High School and the facilities. And I think I learned a whole lot of that from him, from just being part of that Gallatin experience. Now, my philosophy was we were going to dress for football on Friday night like we were going to Sunday school and church. Yeah. Just in a football uniform. So shirt tails were going to be out, shoes were going to be polished, the helmets were going to be striped, polished, and ready to go. And we'd not done that before. And that's not a knock on anybody. That's just stating the facts.
Yeah.
So we started that tradition that year. And time or two, I had to take the polish and go to, hoping that I wasn't going to be told what to do with that polish. But I said, "You haven't polished your shoes yet."
Yeah.
And they polished those shoes. So Rick Duffer, who is currently the principal of Westmoreland High School, played 3 years for me, and he and I liked him when he was a kid. And over the years, he and I have become very, very close friends. I said, "RD, how many times did I have to tell y'all to polish your shoes and shine your helmets?" He said, "Never." It was understood.
Yeah.
And now, the times that I do come up here and I see what we had a hand in starting, you see the tremendous amount of pride that is taken by the football coaches and the team, how nice they're dressed. how beautiful the field is. We called it the Rock Pile Stadium when I was here.
I remember that name. Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
we had to practice on the field. There was no other place. And
Yeah.
we built this corner of the road right there with rocks that we picked up.
That you
'Cause
picked up. Yeah.
we'd take 5-gallon buckets out there, and the kids would pick the rocks up, and we'd dump them right there in that corner. And that's the God awful
That's
truth.
the truth. Yeah. I remember about that. Yeah.
And
I didn't play football. I remember that.
Rick Dufford would tell you that we were having that conversation just a month or two ago about that. But, you know, looking at that schedule in '77, we knew we had really three games out of the first 5 had to win them.
Mm-hmm.
You had Castle Heights was the second game. They were a powerhouse at that time.
Mm-hmm.
No longer a school, but we beat them 14-0. The 4th game of the season, Watertown rolled it here. They were 3-0. We were 3-0. We were still ranked below them, so we beat them 21-0. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're 4-0. Now you go to Portland the next Friday night, and we beat Portland 14-6. Portland was the only team that scored on the Wild Bunch defense. Every other touchdown that year was scored on our reserves.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing. And let me say, when I tell these stories, a lot of times I say it was all because of me. You know, of course that is not true. I was part of it, and we put it together, and it was carried out for us. And the last 5 games, by the time we got past Portland, you could look at the last 5, and the biggest key then was to keep the kids motivated and get to the playoffs, because the other 5 teams could not beat us. That's just a fact. And then we went to Woodbury, the first game of the playoffs. I didn't really know where Woodbury was, and we didn't play sharp that night, but we still won 17-0. We had prepared to play Goodpasture the second round of the playoffs. Once again, we didn't have the field house. We were dressed over here in one of the dressing rooms downstairs. And Wayne Wright had constructed a coach's office. It was out of chicken wire, framed with. And so we had film on Goodpasture sitting on the desk in there. So we were ready to play Goodpasture, right? So back then, obviously, you didn't have cell phones. You didn't have access to information within 5 minutes. So I had developed a good rapport with the sports writers for the Tennessean and the Banner. Errol Huggins at the Banner and Nick Sullivan for the Tennessean. And I started calling them after we beat Watertown. We're still ranked below them, right? So, I started calling them to give them our stats. Well, all of a sudden, it wasn't me, but our team kept winning, and I'd give them the stats and so forth, because that's how you do it. You can't wait for them to come to you. But anyway, we get back to Murfreesboro coming home that night. We stopped at some place to eat there, and I asked to use the phone, and I called whichever paper and asked for the sports department, and I said, how bad did Goodpasture beat Chapel Hill? They said they didn't. They got upset in overtime. So I turned to David Martin, who was sitting right there next to me. I said, where is Chapel Hill? I promise. I didn't know where it was. I'd never been to Chapel Hill, but by the next afternoon, we had all we needed on Chapel Hill. Goodpasture helped us, gave us a film and a scouting report. But back then, you didn't swap film because we didn't have film to swap. All right? So you did a lot of things word of mouth. And now you gotta, when you're calling the people they play, those people are, they're pretty close sometimes with those coaches, and they're a little reluctant to tell you, but they know they might have to do the same thing sometime. But we had all we needed on Chapel Hill, and we came out the second round of the playoff right here, tied 7-7 at halftime, and we did something real kind of bold. But I challenged the kids. I said, we need to take it to them. I want you to challenge them when they come out. Let them know you're over there. And they did. They walked down the field. It's like in the Rocky movies. We want you.
Yeah.
And we proceeded to beat them. I think the final score was 34-6. And then Lake County came in. We were 12-0. We moved the ball all over. It was cold that night.
I
Lord have mercy.
remember that is the one football game that I didn't get to go to. My aunt took me all the football games, and I remember sitting in my bedroom and the wind whistling, and it was like below zero or something. It was terrible, terrible.
Like but we moved the ball all over the field that night. We had, I think, 279 total yards, and Lake County had 79. They never crossed our 50-yard line. The only time they were in our territory was we fumbled the ball to them on the 31-yard line. And they drove in and 7-0. We obviously kicked a field goal sometime. It's 7-3. You've got less than 2 minutes left in the game. I've got a picture of Roger and David and I, and it's so funny. We were looking at the down marker, trying to see what we're gonna do. And they were flashing cameras in our face, the reporters right there and so forth. But we missed 2 field goals in the final 2 minutes of that game to lose 7-5 because they punted to us and had a penalty, or were going to punt, had a penalty. Oh, they did punt, and I said, punt it again. So they took the ball, ran out of the back of the end zone, so they gave us a chance to win 7-5 with the field goal. But I remember the field goal when we were kicking right there on this hash. I forget, I don't remember the distance, that's 43 years ago, but I do remember it. I can still see the wind, and you can see as Richard Denning kicked, you can see a piece of paper flying across, the wind. And the ball just buried off to the right. And then we had one block right at the end of the game. But we just couldn't get in the end zone.
Yeah.
They were huge. And when you got down there inside the 5-yard line, they were just too big for us. But it was, obviously you can tell that was one of the most exciting years of my life. I turned 27 years old, I think, the day before the game. And then, although we had a lot of kids that year to get all district honors, we had first team. You had Banner and Tennessee, and so a lot of them got it in the Banner, some of them got it. They deserved it all. But once again, as I said, I learned what you do. And you call in and say, we won last night. And, Randy Lynn had this many yards. Roger Holmes had this. Tony Trout had this. Tony still has, unless it's been broken, and I don't think it has. He still has the most yards gained in a season.
Well, I remember you were talking about the newspaper coverage, and things are so different nowadays. But I remember my cousin played, Chris, and my mother was a avid newspaper clipping, and a stack of newspaper clippings just on the team that year was like that she had cut out and stuff. So they really did. They put us on the map, so to speak.
It put Westmoreland really on the map. Now you had, I think Coach Winningham had one really fine team, and I think that was 1972. Of course, I was still in college, but I think they were 9-0 and went to Joe Burns, and I believe they got upset. No, I know they got beat, but Joe Burns knocked them out of the playoffs. So we became the first undefeated team regular season in the history of Westmoreland High School football. And what an experience.
Oh, it was of course I was in 7th grade, and I remember it so clearly, just the atmosphere, the playoff time, everything was just, for me it was so new, but it was just it's such excitement all over town. I mean, it was great.
It was. And I tell you, the first 4 years that I was the head coach, I thought everybody in town loved me, because we went 12-1 and 6-4, which those were good football teams. Then 1980 came along, and we are 3-0. We go to Watertown. We should have beaten Watertown. No ifs, ands, or buts, and maybe we had a better football team. I was cocky. The kids were cocky. We got beat 18-17. Now, I still say to this day, it was a poorly officiated game. Now, that sounds like sour grapes, but it was a poorly officiated game. However, we shouldn't have had to try to hit a field goal with 10 seconds left to win, but they beat us 18-17. Back then, winner took all. There was no second, third, fourth place. So whoever won the district went to the playoffs. Well, we go into week 9, and we're playing Gainsborough, and not, once again, not being cocky, just the truth. Gainsborough couldn't beat us. All right. So we did play. We played them on a Thursday night because it was a twofold thing. We didn't want to play on Halloween night, which was the next night, and Castle Heights and Watertown were playing in Lebanon that Friday night. So we got to go over and scout Watertown and Castle Heights, and of course, you know, Watertown wins, they go to playoffs. We were already, I think we had already signed to go to a bowl game. But lo and behold, Castle Heights beat them 34-6. And guess who comes to Westmoreland the next Friday night?
Yep.
Castle Heights. And we were redeemed, and we led 21-0 at the half, and I think the final score was 34-6. And then we played Gordonsville in a driving rainstorm. We couldn't even mark the field off. In playoffs, you got to play. You don't really postpone. Yep. But I remember that night that that group of seniors, we only had 5 in 1980, but they were real leaders and just hard-nosed football players. You had Tracy McCormick and Ricky Perry, Rusty Gent, Victor Creasy, and James Rippey. All right. But I'll tell you, they provided a lot of leadership for us and so forth. But we beat Gordonsville here 34-6 in that rainstorm. I know we passed them silly that night. And our kids always played really good in the rain. And then we got beat by Meigs County. They just we couldn't handle them. They were too big for us. They had their quarterback, fullback signed with UT, and the fullback ended up playing all 4 years in Tennessee. The quarterback never finished up there. Boy, he was outstanding though. But we felt like in preparing for them, we could, if the fullback had been out for several games with a cracked ankle or whatever, he missed. We felt we could handle one of them, but we couldn't handle both of them, and he came back for our game.
Okay. Well, that's the breaks in football, isn't it? You never know.
And then 81, 82, you did your contracts in 2 years. So we had been so successful from when Coach at Winningham's last year in '76 and then my first 4, that in 1981, that year, 80-81, when you call people to set your schedule, well, a lot of teams that played us wouldn't even take my call. So we ended up playing a tough schedule. We played Salina and Gordonsville, who were powerhouses, lost to both of them that year. We almost came back against Gordonsville. I think they ended up beating us like 22-20. I learned a lesson that week, or with the weeks come before that Gordonsville game. We had a kid, Lionel Borders, turned out to be an excellent receiver, man. He was small, but every time I turned around, I was running into him, you know. I said, oh, get back, Borders, get back, you know. So we're over there at Gordonsville. It's the end of the third quarter, just a little time left. We're 90 yards from our goal line, all right? We weren't catching the ball. So I run into Borders. I run into him 10 times that night. So I thought, what the heck? Come here. Go out there and tell Brian to run 197 boot. You run an out at 10 yards and get the first down. Well, he does. Brian comes out. Of course, Brian was 3 feet taller than him. But Lionel called the ball, 1st and 10. All right. He started off the field. I said, do it again. So we drove all the way down the field, and then, like I say, in the fourth quarter, I think they ended up getting us 22-20. And then, unfortunately, we had to play Beach High School in 81, 82, because it was either play Beach or not have a game, because nobody else would play us that had that date open. They wouldn't. But anyway, we finished 6-5. It was a demanding year. It just, like Brian Grace, I talked, you know, after we went 0-3, every game was a playoff game after that, because you had to win out to go to playoffs. And We went to Castle Heights for the last game, and they beat us 28-14. And I decided we needed to play in a bowl game, and the boys didn't really want to play, so we didn't win, to say the least.
Yeah.
Then 82 came along, and 82 was the, as far as overall record, they were 5-5. Now that sounds like a mediocre team, but you had David Brooks, you had Tracy Carter, you had Lionel Borders, you had some good football players. They were young, but we started 0-3 again. But then the biggest highlight of that year, Friendship Christian ended up winning because we upset Trousdale County on this field and knocked them out of the playoffs. Now, we, let me think, we got beat 28-21 at Friendship. And so Trousdale County's coming in here. They're 7-1. We're 3-5. We came up with an excellent game plan. They had a strong safety named Tony Thurman. He'd kill you. So how he was eligible to play in Trousdale County, I don't know, because he lived up the street from my mom and dad in Gallatin. But what we did, in the regular wing tee, you had your halfback here with next to fullback. Well, we put the halfback up as a slot back, so now you got two strong sides. So we gave the kids 3 plays we check off to. So if Thurman lined up over here, we checked off and ran it that way. If, vice versa. So we beat them. I think the score was either 24-22 or 22-20, but we knocked them out of the playoffs, and then we beat Castle Heights the last game of the season for a 4-1 overall district record that tied for first place with Friendship getting to go. But that was really looking back on what they accomplished. Even though 5-5, man, you think, well, that's a mediocre team. No, man, the schedule they played, go 4-1, knock off Trousdale County. That was a heck of a football team. It really was.
Yep.
And then every coach, I think, to be successful, you drive yourself. And I was truly a driven individual back then. And I don't know that I put more, I'm not saying I put more into it than anybody else, because I didn't, but I poured it all out for coaching. And in the spring of '83, it was time for me to move on.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, it took a few years to really realize how much fun I had.
Yeah.
And I see former players, and I tell them all these stories, how do you remember that, Coach? I said, I don't forget much of nothing.
Yeah.
I just
I didn't need to. Yeah, I knew you'd probably have all that stuff in your head.
Which Gerald Tidwell was against Trousdale County that year. We took a safety because we'd already had 1 punt blocked. Our kicker, he was young, so let's, and then we'll kick off to them, and hopefully we can hold them and they won't kick a field goal and beat us. But we gave them the chance to beat us. So we lined up to kick. And so we kick, and the ball's squibbling. I'm over there standing on like the 40-yard line. I said, oh Lord, we're beat, So that ball squibbling right towards me. Well, the kid from Trousdale County reaches up to catch the ball, and about that time, Gerald cut him in two. When he fumbled, we got the ball back. We ran the clock out and won. Gerald says, Coach, I don't even remember that play. and I said, how can you not remember it? It won the game, Gerald.
Yeah.
But he didn't remember it. And
I know you still talk some with some of the former players, here time to time. You enjoy doing that, don't you?
Oh, sure. Sure, we always, it's like my son said he's taken several European trips. He said, Dad, I'm as passionate about my European trips as you are about Westmoreland football. Great time. I was coach of the year in the district in 1980. I was coach of the year in the county, 1980. They didn't do it in 77 for whatever reason. But I remember Bobby Ridings, he wrote for the Gallatin paper, and I remember although he said that Terry Herndon is everybody's coach of the year this year.
Yeah.
And that's pretty that was pretty awesome, not knowing whether you would get a break and being. I only had 4 years of experience, so I came here, and 3 of them at Knoxtops Junior High, and they weren't successful years. And so you come up here, and once again, everything in '77 went right. David Martin and I were playing golf at Barron River several years ago now. And on the way back, you know, he said, you know, we both were so young, we didn't realize how much trouble we could have gotten into. And that's the truth, because everything went right.
Yeah.
Everything. The only thing that didn't go right was Lake County. But, and he also said about the Wild Bunch defense. See, they only gave up 40 points in 13 games. Nobody scored twice. And we were, he said it didn't matter what we would have lined up in. We could have lined up in the 5-4, we could have lined up in a 6-1, a 7-1, whatever. It didn't matter. That bunch they were tough. And I tell you one last story on the Wild Bunch. We played Joe Burns, and we had them down 21-0. The first quarter wasn't even over. I put in everybody. So first thing, Tommy Smith picked off the pass and ran it in for a touchdown. It's 28-0. We're not out the first quarter yet. So I said, what are we going to do? Because I didn't really know the coach that well. I had conversations with him, but it wasn't our philosophy to kill people. It was, let's take it easy. But they got the ball and drove all the way down to the 1 yard line or the 1 foot line. But I mean, it was first and goal, Joe Burns. And the Wild Bunch is over there because I had the reserves in. They said, Coach, put us back in, please. We don't want our record broken, please. And I guess David and I had a short conversation about it, but they were owed that. So I said, let's go. So 4 downs later, it's 1st and 10, Westmoreland Eagles.
Now the Wild Bunch, now those of us at that time pretty well know, but tell us who the Wild Bunch was, the defensive line. Who was that?
Let's see here. Now I did name the Wild Bunch because I've liked several college teams, but I liked Southern Cal back in that day, and they called their defense the Wild Bunch, and they even had a cheer for it.
Yeah.
But let's say you had Tim Coates and Randy Clark, I think, were the defensive ends. The tackles were William Barham.
And was that Tim or Chris?
Chris. Chris.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And linebackers were Mike Kittrell and Lucian Carter. The nose man was, I believe, Jeff Ritchie. Who was the other tackle? If I had my picture, I could tell you by looking at it. And in the secondary, you started Richard Denning, Roger Holmes. Let me think. Marvin Tuttle. And forgive me, but I honestly, without looking at the picture, I could. If I was looking at the picture, I could tell you exactly.
Yeah. Well, they were the Wild.
I'm kind of a sentimental person, and I am a sentimental. I'm not kind of, but I came over here a few weeks ago, on September the 2nd. That was the anniversary of the first win I had, that my team had in 1977, and we beat Salina. And I have the game ball. Now I was going to come over here that day anyhow, but I had it stuck in a container, a clear container, and I saw it that morning. I said, I'm going to take the game ball. So I called RD, and he and John Creasy met me over here, and just reminiscing, and they took my picture and we shared some stories. And of course, John, I think, was here in '77. He was a younger.
Hey, well, we were in 7th grade in 7th. So,
RD was in elementary school, but a few years ago, I came back on the anniversary of the Watertown victory, and I still have the program from that game. I didn't find it. I always knew where it was. Yeah. So I go out there and I walk around on the field, and I just see all these great things happening against Watertown that night. Randy Lynn that night scored 3 touchdowns, gained 283 yards, which stood as a record until Tate Sloan broke it, I think, 2 years ago.
And didn't you get to talk to Tate?
Yeah, I came up. It was really neat. I thought the week that he broke that, I was thinking, you know, that won't ever be broken, but it may never be broken. Well, a week later, I was reading the Tennessean sports page on a Sunday morning, and where he had been named back of the week, and he ran for 300 and whatever he ran for.
Mm-hmm.
I said, he broke the record.
Yeah.
So I called Rick, and I told him, I said, I'd like to come over and meet Tate and talk with him a minute. And he said, sure, I'll call him in when you get here. And so I took the picture down off the wall with Randy Lynn, Roger Holmes, and Tony Tratt and me. That was in either the Tennessean or the Banner. And so he brought Tate in, and I said, you know, son, I wasn't here the night when you broke those records, but I wanted you to know I was here when the ones that you broke were set.
Yeah.
And he told, Rick told him, he said he was one of my high school coaches. I was one of his high school coaches, and a very, very good friend, and I congratulated him on breaking the record, and told him some stories, you know, about, I said, I want you to see these were real people just like you. Mm-hmm. They were just kids just like you.
Yeah.
But, you know, let's see, there was one thing I got off track there, and I was going to tell one tale there, but I guess I got so many, I'll get some other time.
Well, you know, you and I talked about doing this way back before all this, the virus and everything went crazy. We were going to set it up, and I did not want to let this fall season go without having an opportunity for you to talk to everybody, so everybody will know who Terry Herndon is and how important he is in the history of Westmoreland Eagle football. And you played a big part in it, and us fans appreciate it. The older ones that know it appreciate it. Now some of the younger ones are going to know. And a lot of the kids of that were, you know, these players are going to see this, and it's going to be neat for them to see it too.
This is what I want to say. SRO, Deputy Oliver. Mm-hmm. That day that I came over, and I think it was I don't know, 38th, 30th, whatever the anniversary of that game was, and I'm walking out there on the field, and I brought the program with me that day. And so as I was leaving, I walked up here, he was parked, and I went up, and, you know, of course, he knows who I am, and I said, hey, Deputy, how you doing? I was just out there just reminiscing, blah, 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 and I handed him the program, and you know what he said? What? He said, the Wild Bunch.
That's cool.
So for somebody, for that tradition of that name, for people to even know that weren't even around at that time is really, cool. Remarkable.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Yes, it is. Well, Coach, I know we could sit here and you could tell me stories all evening because I've heard a lot of them already. Yeah. But, you know, it's just great, and I'm so glad that we got to do this.
Well, thank you, and I certainly appreciate it, and I'll tell you and anybody that watches this, it's like I tell all my teachers now, and I'm the oldest one out there to say the least, but I say, you know, thank you for listening. Because so many of them were, I was born that year, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, being here for those 6 years was wonderful. Being at North Summit Elementary School, this has started my 31st year as principal there. Mm-hmm. I never dreamed I'd get a job that good. Mm-hmm. And I still love it. People say, when are you going to retire? I said, I don't want to retire. Yeah. When can you retire? I said, 3 years ago. So it's just a matter that it's what you like to do, and I couldn't have ordered a better job out of a catalog, or off the internet, excuse me now.
Yeah.
People don't know what catalogs are anymore.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it's cool to know that you still keep up with Westmoreland football and know what's going on. And
yeah, I call it us. I said Kelly Perry is our secretary at North Sumner, and obviously I remember Chad and Jason were little boys, looked just like the twins now, you know. Mm-hmm. And I said, who are we playing this week? Who are we playing?
Yeah.
No, and I keep up with Gallatin, but you know, I'm nothing like Westmoreland because this is so much of a part of my life. I was able to play on an undefeated team at Gallatin in 1968, and in '77 I was the head coach of one. And some people would ask what was more exciting. I said, you know, looking back on it, they both were exciting. However, I do think coaching it, I had a lot more to do with that than as a player.
Yeah.
But thank you for asking me up today. Thank you, Casey. There's Ricky Perry leaving right there. We'll get him up here, and he's heard all my
Oh,
stories. over the years.
yeah, I'm sure he has. Yeah. Well, this has been great, and I am so glad that we got to do this. Thank you, Coach.
Hey, I'm flattered that I'm flattered that people remember, and I'm flattered to still be called coach. I like that.
Well, I still call you Coach sometimes. So, thank everybody, and thank you, Mr. Herndon.
Thank y'all. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed the stories.